So tonight, the focus is going to be on HMOs and property, but also the economic outlook. If you're a new investor, you may be very well aware of the world economy or the UK economy, how it operates, how it works, but equally you might not be. So tonight is really a little bit of some basic foundational knowledge that I'm going to share with you that you may already know. And apologies if I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs. But I think it's really important that we understand the fundamentals, because when we understand the fundamentals, it helps us to make a decision about our views about the future, given some of the facts and figures that we have before us today. And then it helps us to shape our thinking about what we should do. Should we carry on investing? Should we pull out of the property market altogether? What's the hope of ever making any money in property if we have a recession? All of these thoughts, I'm sure, have occurred to you, and I want to give you some food for thought tonight to help you make better decisions. So it might be that after tonight, you go away and you've got a really clear view about the future. I'm just going to share with you my view. My view is not necessarily the right view. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you exactly what the future looks like. But what I can do tonight is share with you some of my research, some of my knowledge, some of my experience, and help you to make better decisions so that you know exactly what you should do in your circumstance. So I hope that is okay with you. Hi, Dominic. Great to have you on the line as well. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining. So I'm just going to share my slides with you so that we can start from the beginning. There we go. So this is coronavirus and your HMO, the economic outlook. So just a little bit about me. Many of you I've met, and I'm sure our paths have crossed at different times. If you haven't met me before, if we've never engaged with each other through my Facebook group, or you haven't had a call with me, or you haven't been on one of my training courses, just a little bit about myself. I've been investing in property for over 20 years. In fact, I bought my very first residential property in 1989. I was just 20 years old at the time, and I bought my first residential property then, and have been investing since 1996. So I've been through a lot of the ups and downs in the property market. I've seen two fairly major recessions. I've seen the collapse of the market twice. I've seen interest rates go to 15% and a mortgage that was almost unpayable. So I have got quite a lot of experience of riding these tough times. Now, I'm not saying that this is anything like the times we've had in the past. In many ways, it's very, very different. But I hope that I can offer you some hope tonight to realize that this is not the end. This is not economic meltdown, but it is a big economic shakeup. So I have a business called Best Nest, which is the vehicle through which I first started investing in HMOs way back in 2013. And before that, I had a portfolio of single buy-to-lets, which I had developed quite slowly over a number of years. Then we set up a letting agency called Best Nest Lets, which is our lettings agency for running HMOs. So we don't just manage our own, but we manage other people's properties as well. And we have an investment arm called Best Nest Egg. I hope you get that one. We worked hard to find that as a title. So I now write quite a lot on property. I've written 2 books, both Amazon bestsellers, 101 Essential Tips for Running a Professional HMO and Extraordinary Profits from Ordinary Properties. You can buy them on Amazon if you wish. Also, I write for industry magazines and try and make sure that I am educating and helping people when it comes to current issues in the marketplace. And obviously the current big issue for all of us is coronavirus and how it will affect us and our businesses and our health as well, which is probably the most important risk that we should be looking out for. So what I want tonight to do is to help you to protect your business. So if you've only just started investing in property, what does this mean for you in terms of where should you be? What should you be doing? What are the things you can do to protect yourself and protect your business? And what's the outlook for the economy and the outlook for investors? What's it going to look like in 2 or 3 years' time? So I'm not going to be giving you mortgage advice. I'm not going to be giving you financial advice. I'm not going to be telling you to wash your hands and, you know, put your tissue in the bin. We know all of that. So that isn't this kind of webinar tonight. This webinar is about educating you financially about what is happening right now and what potentially might happen. As I say, I'm not a soothsayer. I can't tell you exactly what I think will happen. And you might have very different views from me. And that's fine too. It takes many views to make the world go round. So I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is my view and my thoughts about where we are. So this slide is from the World Health Organization website, and it shows that at the moment we have 375,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus. In fact, this was taken yesterday. This is a slide shot that I created yesterday. So it's probably changed since then. It's probably gone up. But you can see there the majority of the coronavirus is now in Europe. That's where we see the majority of numbers, but it's of course spreading all over the world. Even Greenland, they now have 4 cases. But as we know, coronavirus is one of those viruses which unfortunately takes a while to show up in the population. So we have this lag effect going on, which is clearly a big risk because we don't actually know who has it. We don't know who's carrying the virus. And as this graph shows, you can see the exponential growth of the virus over the last month. And it's quite significant. Imagine that going up and up and up and up. And you can see the numbers from the side, how quickly it doubled and then how quickly it's tripled and how the numbers are exponentially growing all the time. So this is one of the reasons why it is such a problem. This is a graph or a chart, I should say, of the current numbers in those countries listed there. Top is still China. It has the current number of cases, although actually I think, didn't they say on the news tonight that the number from Italy may have overtaken it? So I think Italy may now be at top of the charts. I don't think I'd want to be top of the charts, would you, when it comes to coronavirus? But anyway, I don't want to be flippant about it. It's very serious. So Italy is, I think, now top of the charts. But you can see there the cases and the deaths, the death rate, and how many deaths per 1 million of population. And I can't help but feeling that China's figure there is slightly exaggerated in terms of being rather quashed. I don't think 2 out of every million is true. I'm sure some of these numbers are yet to really properly filter through, and there is quite a lot of doubt about some of the figures that we are being told in the West. And you know, you can hear some of the sort of cynicism that comes through some of the politicians like President Trump and others who doubt that what we're being told is actually the truth when it comes to those numbers. I think what we can conclude, though, is whether these numbers are accurate or not, it is very serious, and numbers are significantly growing all the time. Here we see also that one of the big issues with coronavirus is that incubation period, and there have been cases where on average it's between 2 and 14 days, which is the incubation period, but actually it can be up to 27 days. And a couple of cases have been discovered where it has been 27 days of incubation period. Clearly that is, you know, very, very serious, because you might have been somewhere 25 days ago and felt absolutely fine, and tomorrow you could be very ill, suffering from quite serious lung conditions, coughing, fever, etc. And yet at the moment you don't know that you've got it. So this is one of the issues. This is why coronavirus is such a serious disease. And I know that many of us have probably had our fill of these facts and figures, so I don't want to emphasize the coronavirus, you know, too much tonight. We all know about it. Let me just summarize. It's a serious health risk for us, for all of us, and it will cause population decrease. Now, interestingly, a few days ago, my younger son, who's obviously off school at the moment, was talking about the Gaia principle. He's only 11 years old, and he said, "Oh, we learned this in geography. Some guy," he said, "oh, I think he was called Gaia. Yes, that's him. Some guy said that every so often in the world there is a correction, and either there is a pandemic or there is a disaster, and the world population corrects itself in terms of its numbers." And I thought that was very interesting that he raised that. because we can see that the coronavirus doesn't just affect older people, but it seems to be particularly prevalent and particularly vicious in the way that it attacks older people. So there's a kind of predisposition that if you're over 70, you are in that risk category, which is interesting, obviously very, very sad, but this has impacts for our economy as well. Older people have contributed a great deal to our economy and our society, but of course they do cost the state a lot of money because of pensions. Yeah, and I don't wish to be too controversial here, but just the fact that we have people who are living much longer, this is putting a big strain on state pensions. Now, before you get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should therefore kill off all the people over 70. Not at all. I don't believe that one for 1 second. But I'm simply saying that it's interesting that coronavirus is effectively killing off that sector of the population faster than younger people. It will completely change the world economy. I think we're already seeing that in a very short space of time. Countries that are on lockdown are seeing massive shifts in their economy. Tonight, it was revealed that in the last month, the American population, there are 3.3 million people who have applied for help through their benefit system because they're now unemployed. It's the biggest for about the last 50 years level of unemployment in the USA. And I suspect we'll see similar percentages here. It will be very, very serious for the UK economy, very serious for the world economy. And it may question all of us, or sorry, cause us to question how we've lived. It may cause us to question the very fundamentals of how we exchange, how we deal with each other, how we run our lives. And that might be the good that comes out of it. We'll have to see. But I think whatever happens, we will have to rethink our businesses. And I think my view is that there will be huge opportunities if we stick with it and if we're prepared to evolve. So I want to give you some background now to the way that the economy works. Now, again, I do apologize if this is kind of really basic and you understand all of this, but I think sometimes it's useful to fill in some of those gaps. So to start with, what I'd like to do is just to take it right down, because when we start talking about billions and trillions, I myself know that it kind of switches me off because I think, what is £1 billion? What does £1 trillion look like? It's quite hard to mentally conceptualize that figure. So what I'd like to do is draw an analogy. So this is Joe in the stripy t-shirt there on the left. And Joe works in a manufacturing industry. He works in a manufacturing plant. And he earns £30,000 per year. So he's on a reasonable salary. He likes his job. And he'd like to buy a house for £100,000. Now, over the last 10 years, he's been saving, and he's got a good deposit of 25,000. So he goes to the bank and he says to the bank, could I have a mortgage of 75,000? Very quick question, and please stick this in the chat panel. I told you it's going to be interactive. What is the loan to value ratio for the mortgage against this property that he wants to buy? And by the way, it doesn't matter if you get it wrong, just give it a go. If you don't know what it is, say, I don't know. But some people will know this, so just stick it in the chat panel. What is the loan to value ratio? This is just to keep you awake, you know, while I sort of ramble on in the background. It's so that I know I haven't caused you all to fall fast asleep on the sofa and watch Netflix. Very good, Melanie. I like it. Great. Listen, some great answers already coming in. 75%. Yeah, absolutely. 75. The loan to value is 75%. Okay, so that's great. So we've got 75% loan to value. And this is a fairly standard mortgage that as a buy-to-let investor, we often get 75% loan to value mortgages, don't we? Because that's generally the ratio that banks are happy to lend on a buy-to-let. Now, let's imagine the current interest rate, the current lending rate is 5%. So This is where you're going to need to get your calculators out. Might need to get your phone, get your calculator ready, because I'm going to ask you to do a bit of maths. You never thought you'd be doing maths GCSE questions tonight on the webinar, did you? No. Well, I just like to keep you on your toes, you see. So that's right, Gareth, you got it. 25% is how much he needs to put down. Very, very good. So if he gets that mortgage, and we don't know if he will yet, but if he gets it, what is the repayment? And we're just going to do an interest only for the sake of the maths. What's the repayment he'll make per year, per annum, on that mortgage of £75,000? We've got one answer in already. Are there any others? Dominic, you're right. It's 3,750. So that's his annual mortgage amount. So far, I think we're good with that, aren't we? That's how much he would pay. That's the equivalent of 5% interest on the £75,000 loan. Great stuff. So we've got a £30,000 salary. We've got a £100,000 property. We've got a £75,000 loan at 5% interest rate. So that is equivalent to 3,750 a year. If we divide that by 12 to get the monthly figure, it's £312 per month. Now, with a little bit of tax taken off and national insurance and so on, probably his income, let me just go back, is about 2,200 a month. That's how much Joe actually gets in his pocket, in his back pocket gets 2,200. So if we take off the mortgage payment, he's left with £1,888 per month. So the banks say, yes, this is what we call affordable, because you still got £1,888 a month to live on. We're happy. We're going to lend you the money. Happy days. He goes out. He's absolutely delighted. Fantastic. Everybody's happy. Perfect. Okay. Now, the thing is that over the next year, Joe goes a little bit mad with his spending, and he realizes that, he's got to buy some new furniture for the house, and he wants to buy a new kitchen, and he wants to decorate it beautifully, and he's got to have new decking, and he's got to have a new lawn, and he needs to have a shed. And actually that hot tub looked absolutely brilliant in the Argos catalogue. And what he'd really, really love is an outdoor gym. And he puts in the latest techno gizmos in his house. He's got surround sound TV with the latest sound bar. And within a year, he spent another 50 grand on his credit card. Oh, but the problem is the credit card is 10% interest. So this is really terrible. So at 10% interest, that's a lot of money. In fact, that is £416 a month. So poor old Joe has now got much less cash flow, because he's got £312 a month mortgage, £416 a month credit card payments. So his net cash flow is £1,472. Okay, he can still, he can still buy his food, he can still pay for his utilities. It's all, doable, but his money is reducing rapidly. And his total borrowing is £125,000. Now, his house might actually have gone up a bit in value. Maybe we could be generous and say it's gone up by 10%. So he's got an asset worth £10,000 more. But even with the asset going up a little bit, he's still got quite a lot of debt. So it's okay. It's probably manageable if he's careful and he doesn't spend any more, and he maybe tries to get a salary rise, wage rise at work. Everything will be okay. But, if I was his mom, I would say, Joe, just stop spending. Your house is perfect. Now pay off your credit card. And I'm sure that's what many of your mums would tell you if you did that too. So his income is 30,000. His total borrowing is 125,000. And we would call this an indebtedness of 24%. In other words, he owes 4 times his income. He's got 4 times his income as loans. Now, is that still affordable? What do you think? Would you think that's affordable, or do you think that's not affordable? As long as he doesn't get a wife, he'll be okay, says Gareth. Gareth, really? What a comment to make in this webinar. So Belinda thinks that would be the max. You really want to go any higher than that. So if he's careful, yep, he could probably just about manage it. He could probably kind of get through. Thanks, Melanie. That's great. And yeah, I think probably we'd all say, yeah, that's okay. You know, just be careful, Joe. Don't go any further. But what if interest rates went up? So the 5% on his mortgage, Madge, it is about HMOs and coronavirus, but it's about the economy. So what I'm doing is I'm laying some groundwork for the economy, so we can come to the economy and I explain what the predictions are about the economy. So don't worry, Madge, we're going to get there. So let's imagine interest rates go up, and what if his income goes down? So his factory boss comes to him one day and says, Joe, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to decrease your salary, or I'm going to have to give you a different job, because unfortunately the part of the factory you're working in has just not been this productive as we needed it to be. We haven't hit our targets, so I'm afraid everybody's having to take a pay cut. So dear old Joe finds he's now on £20,000, but he's got exactly the same borrowing. Now his income is about £1,500 a month. He's got a debt for his mortgage of 312. He's got credit card debt of 416. The next thing is, you're absolutely right, Gareth, he's going to have to rent out a couple of rooms in his house, because that's going to be the only way to create more income, because now his net cash flow has gone down to 772. It's getting very, very tight, isn't it? And I think we can all see the trajectory here for poor Joe, that if he carries on spending and if his earnings go down, he's going to be in serious problematic debt. Would you agree that this could be a problem for Joe if things do not start to improve? What's your view about that? Yes, we all agree. Joe, be careful. Okay, I want to move away from Joe for a second, because I now want to keep that analogy in your head. I want to take you to HM government, our lovely government, okay? And this is not meant to be party political, but I'm just telling you the current situation, how coronavirus will affect us. So the government doesn't really have a job. Well, you can have a lot of argument about that, but the government has income through tax receipts and through revenues. Now, quick question. Many of us know that the government collects income tax. That's one of their biggest receipts. Can you name another revenue that the government also collects? So we've got income tax. What are the other sort of taxes or revenues that the government collects? See how many you can name, and put it in the chat panel. So council tax, that's a good one. That really goes to local councils rather than the national government. But you're absolutely right, that is a tax that we as taxpayers pay. VAT, that's a big one, 20%. Yes, property taxes like capital gains tax, stamp duty, corporation tax, people who don't understand what tax is. Inheritance tax, that's a great one, Madge. Yes, absolutely. So there's loads of taxes, aren't there? There's lots of ways that the government gets receipts, what we call receipts, because it's not just tax, it's other revenues they get from duties, you know, fuel duty and alcohol duty and that kind of thing as well. So then we have the government's assets. Now, obviously, they don't really own houses like Joe has got his house, but the government has something called GDP, gross domestic product. And this is effectively the turnover of the government, the turnover of the country. And GDP is made up of a whole lot of different factors, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But we can kind of say this is a bit like their asset. This is the government's asset. And then the government also, just like Joe, he's got a mortgage. The government has borrowing, because the government also spends money. And we're going to go into some of that in a minute. But let's just stand back. We probably all know these 4 different factors about how government works. Now, with coronavirus, do you think the income that the government gets from tax receipts will go up or down? Will the tax receipts go up or down? Absolutely, because people are going to be out of jobs, people aren't going to be earning, they can't very well raise VAT because there'd be an outcry. I do know that, Danny. Yes, thank you. Thank you. If you would like to pause to do that at 8 o'clock, I'd be very happy to do that. I think, can I have a show of hands or some views from everybody? Would you like me to pause at, say, 7:59 or 7:58 so we can go to our front doors and clap the NHS? Perfect, because I would love to do that as well. And I only heard about that today, and I was feeling really bad because I thought, I'm on a webinar. Okay, that's I think that's more or less unanimous. So in about 2 minutes time, I will stop the webinar, and we'll just pause for a moment, and we'll go outside and clap. In fact, about 1 minute's time. So tax receipts, I think we agree, are going to probably go down. Now, gross domestic product, do we think that's going to go up or down? So this is, if you like, turnover of the country. So things like how much people are producing, how productive we are as a country, how much people spend, that all goes into GDP. Yes, that's going to go down. Do you think borrowing is going to go up or down? And I think you've probably got the answer already from some of the things that have been happening recently. Will borrowing go up or down? Generally, I think the feeling is that borrowing is going to go up, and I'm going to share some figures in a moment when we come back from our clap that tells you exactly what the figures are. And then finally, spending. Will spending go up or down? Right, hold that thought. Let's have a pause. Let's go and do our clap, and we'll come back in a moment. I think our street was a little bit early. We went out, clap for about a minute, and come in. So I'll just wait for a few more people to join us. Perhaps if you are back in the webinar, could you just raise your hand so I know you're there and you're listening? That'd be great. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? Great, that's fantastic. Right, I shall carry on then. Okay, cool. So spending. Now, the government spends money on the NHS. That's a major part of its spending, and on pensions and other sectors, which I'll come to. So do we think that spending is going to go up or down? Absolutely. I think it's going to go up. So let's just have a quick look at some of the history of government revenues. And this is really important because I'm going to share with you the current figures for income for the country. So up until March 2019, now this is where the figures get really, really big. So we that's why the analogy of Joe, I think, is helpful, because it's so impossible sometimes to understand what these figures really mean in reality. So the revenue for the year ending March 2019, so a year ago, was 792 billion. And this equated to 37% of GDP. So the income was much, much higher than, if you like, the country's turnover, which was great. That was in many ways a good thing. Income tax revenue was 12.5% of gross domestic product. Okay, so of all that gross domestic product, 12.5% was income tax revenue. And you can see here in this chart over the last sort of 14, 15 years, how much government revenues from taxes and receipts have grown. So that's a good thing, that government taxes and receipts have gone up. That's good. And here is a chart to show you how much gross domestic product has gone up. And it's gone up steadily. It hasn't gone up in leaps and bounds. It's gone up steadily since the year 2000. And this is, again, generally what countries want. Generally, governments want gross domestic product to be growing, because when you grow the economy, individual people can grow their wealth. There's a sense of forward motion and momentum in the economy. And in fact, the banking system very much relies upon GDP going up. Now, in 2019, our economy grew by about 1.4%. It was quite slow. It was the slowest since the Great Recession of sort of the 2010s. Actually, it was about 2009, where the economy actually shrank by 4.2%. So it did grow, but not by very much. And in fact, this shows you the year-on-year growth in the UK, where in 2009 we went down by 4.2%. So it was really fairly dramatic, but we picked right back up, and it has been growing steadily ever since. Not as much in the last few years, but nevertheless, it's been sufficient for people not to be too worried. And the Bank of England says that when GDP goes up, the economy is growing, because that means that people are spending and businesses are expanding. So this reason, this GDP measure is also called growth, because this shows us how strong the economy is. So if it's growing, it's a stronger economy. And to measure GDP, it's the ONS that collects the data, and they collect it from thousands of companies, and they calculate it by adding up the total value of goods and services produced in the country, everybody's income, and what everybody in the country has spent, because financial turnover, is also a part of the way that GDP is measured. So let's just have a quick summary. So we've got tax receipts and revenues, which we think are going to go down. GDP is going to go down. Spending is going to go up, because there's more benefits that are going to be needed. There's going to be a bigger NHS that's needed. The government have just recently announced a huge amount of spending on various different sectors, including the self-employed, which we'll come to a bit later. And also, in order to fund this, because the tax receipts and revenues have gone down, just like Joe with his property that he was updating, the only way that he could fund it, and the only way the government can fund it, is by borrowing more money. To give you a bit of context here, the other part of the equation is the money supply. And over, I suppose, 50 years, since 1970, commercial banks have really been the ones that have been creating money. And even today, the situation that we are in the UK, we've just entered another QE, quantitative easing situation. And this has been this is facilitated by commercial banks. But even central bank reserves and notes and coins are on the way up as well. Now, you might say, okay, what's this got to do with HMOs? What's this got to do with property? I don't really care about economics. I've never been interested. Right, well, this is where your education will set you apart from other people. Because when you know what I'm about to tell you, and when you understand this, this will help you make massive decisions about what you do next. Because Warren Buffett once said, "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy." And you might be feeling fearful tonight. You might be very worried about the economy. You might be very worried about your property portfolio. But I want to share with you some stuff that I think will help you feel, might make you feel stronger, help you feel more resilient, and may also be the turning point for probably over the last 5 years, what have been some very difficult years for property investing. What do I mean by that? Well, spending has also gone up. So over the last 30 years, we can see there that spending has also grown quite a lot in the economy, very much actually in line with income, although we still spend more than we actually earn. And what does the government spend its money on? You can see there in that pie chart all the different areas that the government spend its money on. The biggest, of course, is that purple section on the left, which is social security and pensions benefits. So a large part of what the government is spending on actually is going to get bigger. Now, obviously, there's going to be some older people who will die, and their pensions will no longer be payable. However, having said that, there's going to be probably more older people who may have chronic illnesses. There may be younger people who are reaching retirement who decide to take early retirement because of coronavirus. It could have all sorts of impacts. And certainly in terms of the Social Security bill, this is very much likely to rise. So what we'll find is that that portion may well grow, and it's already a third of what the government spends its money on. It's a huge, huge part of the overall public finances. Now, one of the ways in which we assess the health of debt, as we did with Joe earlier on, we said that his mortgage represented 75% of the asset, which was the house that he was buying. But after he'd had his credit card, he then had £125,000 worth of debt, and he still only had an asset worth maybe 110,000. So all of us were going, ooh, it seems like a lot of debt compared to the asset that he's got. And yet it was still affordable because the interest rate was quite low. So we all thought, yeah, it's just about okay as long as he doesn't spend any more money. Now let's bring it to the national situation. And here we have a graph of UK national debt as a percentage of gross domestic product, GDP. Now, up until about a month ago, our national debt represented 85, actually it was about 84% of our GDP. So that's a bit like the loan to value ratio. Our loan to value ratio was 84%. It was okay. Interest rates are very, very low. So in terms of repaying that debt, or I should say servicing the interest on that debt, it's affordable. It's not too difficult for the government to do. You'll see at the bottom there that interest totals about £41 billion per year. So the debt that we have currently in the country represents about 5% of all our public spending. So if I go back to that previous slide, 5%, which would be the defence, if you look at that defence kind of sector, on that red pie there, piece of pie, they haven't actually got it on this pie chart, which is quite interesting. But if you imagine that doubled up, that would be what we spend in just servicing the borrowing on the debt. Okay, so it's quite a lot of money, but it is affordable. I think that many people would say, it's still okay. And in fact, our national debt as a percentage of GDP is quite low compared to other countries. Now, this chart shows you public sector net debt. And it shows you exactly how much the percentage is as sort of compared to what we were borrowing compared to what we were turning over. National debt as of the end of March 2019 was 1.8 trillion. So a lot of money, 1.8 trillion, was borrowed in order for us to keep servicing our economy and making our economy work. And this graph kind of was hopeful. The ONS presented this to say, look, we might be going down. We might be going down. Our debt might actually be reducing. It's good. We're all doing really well. But unfortunately, then coronavirus came along, and it's all going to change. So the Monetary Policy Committee, this is taken from the Bank of England website, said that a further package of measures was warranted. It therefore voted unanimously to increase the Bank of England's holdings of UK government bonds. In other words, to borrow, for the government to issue bonds against which it could borrow money. And it's going to increase that by 200 billion. And this is going to be financed by the issuance of central bank reserves. And also to reduce bank rate to 0.1%. So obviously this is an emergency meeting because the bank and the government could see that without further borrowing, they were going to be up the creek without a paddle, and they had to do something about it. So borrowing was 1.8 trillion about 2 months ago. It's now another 330 billion has been released on top of that 200 billion. So in fact, government borrowing is now way over 84% of GDP. So before COVID-19, so just literally a month ago, at the up until end of February, so from the end of March to the end of February, the national debt was at 1.8 trillion, 84% of GDP. So effectively, that's like a loan to value. So imagine that as a mortgage payment. That's like what the government has to pay every month as their mortgage payment. And because interest was low, payments were low. So it was affordable. It should have 2 Fs. Apologies for the spelling mistake. So this equated to about 5% of government spending. And I think we'd all go, yeah, that's okay, government, you're doing all right. Just don't want to spend any more. You just don't want to increase your spending too much because it could go horribly wrong if interest rates go up or if spending goes up, just the same as Joe. But then coronavirus happened. So what's happening now because of all the spending? So this was written, this was an article, I think in the Independent, 25th of March. The British government has almost £2 trillion of debt. It will soon have a lot more. Economists expect it to borrow perhaps 8% of GDP, 160 billion this year, as spending to battle the coronavirus soars and tax revenues collapse. The debt doesn't come out of nowhere. Someone has to lend it to the Treasury. And of course, where does it come from? The government issues bonds. It sells these into financial markets, namely the Bank of England, and they give them a return on the bonds, and that's the yield. So what will happen post-COVID-19? Well, as you've heard Rishi Sunak say about 10 days ago, or was it even less? It feels like longer, but it might have only been a few days ago. We will do what it takes. So they've already pledged £330 billion, and there's more likely. And tonight he announced another measure for self-employed people. Economic activity has already paused. It has slowed to a grinding halt, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have serious repercussions from that. GDP has been estimated to fall by 10 to 20% this year. So if you remember the chart, it was slowly going up, 1%, 2%, just very, very gradually going up. And the Bank of England likes GDP just going up generally because it keeps everybody thinking we've got a strong economy. Economists are saying we're going to fall between 10 and 20% GDP. It could even be more than that. So income, receipts will therefore go down. Spending will go up and debt will go up to about 110% of GDP. Now, if GDP falls, the spending will go to about 130% of GDP. So this is a very serious situation. And you're not supposed to really know this. You're not supposed to put these pieces of the puzzle together because the government don't really want people to know what goes on behind the scenes, although they have a statutory duty to give us the information. So I've pieced together the information so you can have it easily and you can have it digestible so that you can think about what I'm sharing with you and make some decisions about what you do next. So this is an article from Oxford Economics, latest global outlook. The coronavirus pandemic will inflict a deep recession on the world economy. Now, these are independent economists. You can go to their website and have a look at this, and many national economies during the first half of 2020. We now expect global growth to drop to 0. And in fact, we expect in Q1 2020 to shrink at a faster pace than in the financial crisis of 2008, with a 2% fall in world GDP on the quarter and a further 0.4% quarter two decline. The near-term outlook is extremely challenging, but we believe that, consistent with historical experience, the eventual resurgence will be strong, with annual growth next year rising as high as 5% in early 2021 and 4.4% for the next year, which is great news, as long as we can all hang on. And that's the question, isn't it? Can we hang on for the next year while we go through a very, very turbulent time in the economy? Okay, I want to ask you another question now. Okay, get your brain cells moving. Okay, so what happens when money is printed? Because that's effectively what is happening now. The government has issued bonds. The Bank of England has said, okay, we'll buy the bonds, and they will now start the printing presses, and the money will start to print, and that money will start to flow into the wider economy. So when money is printed, a few questions here. Does money itself, does it go up or down in value? There, you got it. Absolutely. The value goes down, doesn't it? Because there's more of it in circulation. Yes, perfect. So does the price of goods, I should say goods, does the price of goods go up or down? Not actually in value, but does the price of goods go up or down as a result of money going down in value? Yes, look, you're all budding economists now, aren't you? You know, you've all got the hang of this. I think I'll just pack up and go home. You're right. The price of goods goes up, doesn't it? So a loaf of bread that you could buy last year was like, 90p. And because of inflation, that's what this is, it's now worth, it's now cost you £1 to buy the bread. So what about house prices then? When we've got money printing, we've got bread going up in price, we've got petrol going up in price. What happens to house prices? Do they go up or down? Okay, there's some mixed views about it. Okay, well, I'm going to reveal the answer in a moment. So let's first of all look at inflation. So this is when the government is printing money, there's lots more money in circulation, and you're all right that the problem is that the value of the pound has decreased, and so goods go up in cost. So on the left-hand side, we've got an article here from 2015. This is money that said that the price of a loaf of bread has risen by 11,000% in the past 100 years, and it will hit £150 per loaf by 2115 if prices rise at the same rate. So you better save up, because we'll all be millionaires by then anyway, just by dint of being inflationary, multimillionaires, in fact, probably billionaires. And on the right, this is taken from last year. Food price inflation highest in almost 6 years, says Retail Group. That was the British Retail Consortium. So although we're reportedly told that inflation is quite low, whether it's real or true or manipulated is another question for another day. But the point is that we are all subject to inflation. Now, what's very interesting about inflation is the passage of time, and how over time, what it does to an asset, what it does to not the currency, but what it does to an asset is it massively grows the value of that asset. So in 1750, this is a chart going all the way back to 1750, and you can see the highs and lows of what happened over the years. And this basically shows you how an asset, maybe like a property or something that has some real intrinsic value, has gone up in price, a bit like maybe a loaf of bread. It'd be very sort of moldy by now, but it would go up. Now, Gareth, you said, or it depends. Well, it does. It doesn't just depend on inflation. You're absolutely right. It depends on other factors. But we've left the EU, so maybe it'll go down. And this is what we can't predict. But I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about what I think is going to happen. But this chart really just shows you how lots of things have happened. And this is this arrow that says what happened here in the 1950s. Does anybody know what happened after World War II and why suddenly from about 1950s onwards, we really have massive inflation? What caused that huge growth in inflation from the 1950s onwards. Madge, yes, that was definitely a factor, that money came off the gold standard. The pound came off the gold standard. The dollar came off the gold standard. We certainly did have more public spending. You're right, Belinda. We had an NHS. We had a lot more public services. Yes, Mel, I will. Absolutely no problem. Now that's interesting, Ben. That definitely did happen after World War III. Although generally consumer spending doesn't affect inflation. It's normally it's sort of the other way around. That inflation takes off, and then the government has to curb it by using interest rates to curb inflation. Um, Often, when inflation is taking off, though, consumer spending actually goes down because people go, "Oh, that's too expensive. I'm not going to buy it." Um, the actual truth is that we were paying for the Second World War, and we had a massive war debt to the United States. And the only way that we could pay it back was by printing lots and lots and lots of money, because we owed so much money. So we printed lots and lots of money to pay back America. But actually, of course, it was much less in value than it was when we'd borrowed it. So there was lots of shenanigans about all of that. Um, Yes, World War II. Sorry, did I say World War One? I meant World War II, exactly. So that was the reason why. Now, this is another very interesting chart that shows you the link between UK prices, house prices, and the money supply. You see, a lot of people think that house prices are affected by demand, supply and demand. And yes, to a certain extent, that definitely does affect house prices. But you see, house prices, if you know, a house is an expensive thing to buy. Not many people can buy a house with cash. They have to take out a mortgage. So unless they can get a mortgage, they can't buy a house. And if they can't get a mortgage, that purchase of that house cannot take place. So therefore, purchases remain fairly low. And actually, if you look at the statistics over the last 10 years, house price buying has really stabilized. It hasn't been anything fantastic. Renting has very much increased. Our population has increased, but most people can't really get a mortgage. So it's easier for them to rent. But you can see here that when the government releases money, when the banks release money for people to be able to buy houses, that's when house prices go up. And this is really a key correlation to be aware of, that the money supply creates income, sorry, creates inflation, and inflation pumps up house prices. And this is a really key graph, I think, to get our heads around, because the government have just printed £330 billion worth of money. And that will start to flood the economy. That will start to go into the economy. It has to, because we're probably going to be going into a recession. In fact, it may well be a depression. And, without wanting to scare anybody, I think the next few months are going to be very, very tough and very tight, because lots of people will have lost their jobs. People won't have money. And so to start with, the money supply will not look like it's made any difference apart from to prop up the economy so it doesn't fail. But give it time. Just give it time. You see, this is a debt inflation process here in the top left-hand corner. And what this diagram really is there to illustrate is that banks will create money with new loans. So effectively what's happened is that the government have said, oh, we need some more money. We will sell you some bonds. You then give us the money, and then we can spend that money. The banks will say, great, we've now got that money, and we'll lend it out to people. So if you look at a lot of the spending plans, the support plans that are coming through to the self-employed and businesses, a lot of them are grants or loans to business, because really the government knows that unless it lends out that money, it ain't getting it back, and it's just going to be inflationary into the economy. Debtors buy assets. So we, as property investors, we get a mortgage and we buy an asset. And it's going to be fantastic. Gareth, you're absolutely right. They're not going to do it yet because they're very worried. So I think we're going to see a lot of risk aversion, because they're not going to lend to people who they're not sure can pay the money back, are they? Why would they? So they're not going to lend yet. But that's why I say hold on. just wait, give it another year. If you can hang on for the next year, you're going to see very, very different scenario. As I say, this is my view, and I don't, you don't have to agree with me. Very happy to have the debate, no problem at all. But debtors are very, very good for banks because they increase the money supply. The people who lose out in these kind of low interest times are cash savers. And because of inflation, it eats away at their money. So again, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the winners and losers from inflation. And there's 3 different scenarios there. A is from the post the Great Recession. Who won from inflation after the Great Recession? This was in 1920. The Treasury, mortgage holders, companies and banks, they massively won because inflation massively increased the value of their assets. Nobody else did. In fact, cash holders, savers and government bond holders all lost out terribly. Inflation in normal times, yeah, not too bad. Employees get a little bit. Again, cash holders don't really get very much. But in near zero inflation, where there's no growth, Treasury and mortgage holders don't get anything, and everybody else gets a little bit, and savers get a little bit as well because their money is not being eaten up by inflation. So there's the 3 balances that we look at are the debt. What's the debt that the bank has lent, and what's the cash? And as we know, cash savers are not making anything on their money at the moment. In fact, they are losing out seriously badly. So it might make you think, yikes, this is really bad. I'm going to get out because I'm not going to be able to get a mortgage. It looks like house prices might start to go up, although I think initially they'll start to go down because everyone's going to panic. So why would I want to be involved in property? Well, probably like you and many people who've been investing for a while, when I started investing, I just knew that people always needed homes. For me, the reason why I invest is because I really believe in providing good quality homes and accommodation to people. So it's a basic human need. People are not going to not need a home. People need homes, and you can't deny that. So that, I think, kind of is a given. I believe that in the next year, we'll start to see inflation taking off because of the amount of money in the system. The only way that that money will work in the system is if it starts to circulate. I think in the first 12 months, we probably will see, we may see deflation, and we may see some fantastic opportunities to buy property, not just residential. I'm not talking about, repossessions or somebody's lost their home, but I mean commercial buildings, industrial buildings, buildings that have got no other use but could be used for residential. They could be fantastic projects because the cost of them will be relatively inexpensive. So we can then produce homes for a much less cost and then potentially pass on that cost saving to tenants. I mean, wouldn't that just be a wonderful thing to be able to do? As the economy starts to become more secure and flattens out and levels out after coronavirus, and we don't, of course, know when that's going to be, people will have to start spending again. They will start to go back to work. They will start to earn money again. The economy will start to get back on its feet again, but it will take some time. And I believe that as a result of that, once people do start to spend, again, it might be another year, year and a half's time, asset prices will start to go up. So if you are already in the market, if you already invest in property, you are already ahead. You are already ahead. And why do I say that? Because you've already experienced the whole process of buying a property, learning how to go through the whole getting a mortgage. You understand about leverage. You understand about how to make property work as an asset. You're not having to learn this. You know this already. Gareth, you're absolutely right that if inflation starts to go up, interest will start to go up as well. However, if we have a situation where our society is heavily indebted because of coronavirus, we'll have business owners who've got debt around their necks because of the lending that they've had to take on to keep their businesses flush over these few weeks and months. How many people would applaud the government for putting up interest rates at a time when possibly interest rates really need to stay low to keep the economy functioning and growth possibly growing? I think interest rates would be, if they raise them too high, it could cause huge economic and social unrest. So the government are going to have a terrible, and the Bank of England are going to have a terrible balancing act, because inflation probably will start to take off, and yet, and asset prices will start to take off, and yet raising in interest rates will be a terrible blow for the rest of the economy. So let me come to some of the practical advice, because this is all theory, and it's really important, I think, we understand that theory, but I think, how do we actually apply it? What would I suggest that you do? What do I think you could do now as an investor? Number one, I think you need to set aside some time every day to keep up with the advice. I mean, I don't know about you, but kind of every day I'm bombarded with articles from today I got something from the Deposit Protection Service, and, you know, I got something from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and then I get something from the BBC and something, you know, and it's kind of overwhelming. And I'm trying to run my business and teach my child who's off school, and, you know, crazy. So I think an hour a day when you can keep up to date with key sources, or even get someone to do this for you and summarize it for you, is a really good idea. And if you kind of find some useful information that's a government source, keep it safe. So either bookmark it on your bookmarks bar, or save the link into a notepad, you know, an online notepad, or file something away, create a folder where you can file everything away, so that you can, you know, keep track of everything. And you can think, where was that information about what I should do about evicting tenants? I can't remember where I saw that. Save the URL and put it somewhere so you can keep it. Look at next fortnight's cash flow every week. So every Monday or Tuesday, make some time to look at what your cash flow forecast is saying for the next 2 weeks. So if tenants are saying, I can't pay my rent, or you have a problem with rent flows, you're keeping on top of it. And you're going to want to get some up-to-date information, obviously, from your agent, if you're using an agent as well. The other thing I would suggest is that when you have to make some difficult decisions about whether you take a mortgage holiday, well, that's not really a holiday, is it? Nobody's actually having any fun here. But when you have a break from your mortgage, again, notate those on your cash flow forecast so that you can really plan ahead and see what's happening. Try and use a risk-based scenario. And what I mean by that is there's two elements to analyzing risk. One is impact and one is likelihood. Now, the likelihood of something disastrous happening is quite high, actually, at the moment, because of coronavirus. The impact might not be quite as high as you might first think. There might be ways in which you can mitigate that. So it might be worth sitting down and saying, okay, what's the risk of A, B, and C happening? And what's the impact of that? And what's the likelihood of it? So that you can stand back from it a bit and be objective. You know, I think that there's a lot of emotion flying around at the moment, a lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. And, you know, it's understandable. But I think if we're running a business, we've got to try and stand back and measure and track what we're doing so that we can make sensible decisions. So that's interesting, Madge. I'm waiting for confirmation about whether the mortgage holiday is going to go on your credit file. We certainly heard from Lloyd's that it wouldn't, but I think maybe every bank is treating it slightly differently. So it is definitely a risk. I think you pointed out a perfect example there of a risk. What's the impact and what's the likelihood? You need to weigh those up yourself. So think about how you're making decisions. Are they fear-based or are they information-based? And do you have enough information to make the decision? Sometimes we make decisions, don't we, based on our gut feeling. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but that isn't the only way to make a good decision. So if you've got a friend or a business partner, somebody you can sound things out with, do feel, I do think it's a good idea to use somebody who's got some wise thoughts or advice who can help you through those decisions, and create a plan B if the worst should happen. So some just good ways to kind of manage your business and to look at some KPIs every day and analyze what's happening in your business. I know some SA operators, for example, have really more or less completely folded. I think in the HMO industry we'll be okay, and I'll kind of come to that. So here we have this really fit guy, and the reason I put him in is to kind of shake you up, wake you up, and go, oh, Wendy, why have you put him in the slide? And it's because I want you to think about getting your business fit. So if you currently don't use some of these tools like a cash flow forecast, and you're not measuring your KPIs, and you're a bit, slapdash about using a double entry bookkeeping system online, and your systems aren't really very good, this is a really good time to get your business fit, because you're going to have to. You're going to have to in the new world, because you may have reduced income. So you've got to keep on top of all your payments. You've got to keep on top and make time to thinking about how you're running your business. Yeah, well, sexist is as sexist does, Gareth. Okay, so some practical tips to get through. Right, number one, cash flow. Cash flow is key. So managing your tenants and their rentals, really important. Communicate with them, give them a payment plan, work out an arrears plan with them, work with them, help them, support them. They might need your support as their landlord to help them get through and find the right the right solution to their needs as well. They're probably more anxious than you are. Ultimately, you know how money works, you know how to buy a property. They probably don't. They're much more vulnerable. So work with them. Keep some cash flow coming in. If it means negotiating with tenants, do that. Apply for bank loans ASAP. Now, I do put that in there with the caveat that it does depend whether it's going to affect your credit rating or not. I'm not saying necessarily take the bank loan. And again, you might want to go to the point where you have got an agreement in principle before you action the bank loan. But it's just as well to kind of get your ducks lined up and see whether you can access any bank loans right now. And before you go ahead and actually accept the loan, understand about the credit rating. And again, as I say, as soon as I have any information on that, I'll post it on the Facebook group so that I can answer questions on that. Okay, really good question from Kennel. What's my view on short-term impact on house prices? I suspect they will go down quite seriously, Kennel. I think that we are going to see a big slump in the market because nobody will have any money to buy. And house prices go up because of the money supply going up. Now, the money supply has gone up, but of course it hasn't filtered through yet to the market. It hasn't done its job yet in stabilizing the economy. So most people for the next 3 months, even if they have a business that's still operating, they will be on much, much reduced income. And who is really going to want to buy property over the next 3 to 6 months? The only people who are going to want to buy property over the next 3 to 6 months are you and me, who know that there are some fantastic deals out there and we could help people solve their problems. And I believe that actually as a property person, we help people solve problems because we know how to go fast, to solve problems quickly, and to do it neatly that will really help them get out of a fix. So I think prices will go down, but I think give it another year to 18 months and they will go up. Okay, so next thing, you can read through some of that. Okay, the local authority. Now, I don't know about the local authority in your area, but certainly in our area, they are desperate for accommodation for people who would ordinarily not be able to get accommodation. So maybe homeless people or single parents. If you've got accommodation that is empty and you could phone your local authority and find who the people are to talk to, you might just find you get a very, very nice deal there, because local authorities can apply for advanced levels of housing benefit. And if you can do the right deal with your local authority, you might find that you've got a really nice, win-win in that situation. Also, local charities who deal with homeless people or are dealing with vulnerable people are often looking for accommodation, even more so now. Cut all unnecessary spending and liaise with your bank over your mortgage payments. For example, we've got some mortgages with Kent Reliance. They are allowing us to cancel the direct debits just after an initial conversation on the phone, not asking for any more information. They're just allowing us to cancel. So that's really, really good. And if you've got staff, you might need to think about whether you're going to furlough them or you're going to, work with them to keep them on part-time. Just negotiate with your staff. This is where good communication skills cannot be beaten. So number 2, what about new borrowing? So what if you are going through bridging, or you've got bridging, you're looking at refinancing, you've got loans or mortgages? What should you do? Well, I think it's likely that interest rates will change and some will go up. So although government interest rates, the Bank of England has gone down to 0.1% because of the risks in the economy now. What we're seeing is a lot of banks are now increasing their interest rate. So in fact, if you've got an outstanding loan or deal that you haven't yet completed on, I would say it's probably a good time to complete on it. However, please let me just caveat that I am not a financial advisor. So I cannot advise you on your financial situation. You have to work that out and kind of do that risk analysis. But I think, it's a good idea to kind of get these things locked down now so that you can move forward. I do think eventually we will see some lowered interest rates as well, because of the Bank of England, because eventually the banks are going to need to lend the money, because if they don't lend money, they can't stimulate the economy and then they can't make money. Remember, this is all a risk-based approach, and your situation could be very different from the person next to you or the person next to them. So what I say now, this is what I would do, but it might not be right for you. So, each person has their own situation, their own financial situation, to think about. And some of this is about your own confidence and your ability to be an investor and an entrepreneur. So that's just worth having a bit of a reflection on as well. Cash flow is king. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. So work out your cash flow. Make sure you haven't overexposed yourself. So make sure that you can get through if you do take that borrowing and if you don't have any income to cover it. Number 3, purchases. I think there's going to be some great deals, so hang on in there. So if you can get finance, you might want to hold on to it for the time being. You might have some friends who are investors, and of course, they're not going to want to put money into anything right now because they are losing money. Savers are losers, as Kiyosaki would remind us. So, that is going to be a bit of a challenge. But coming out of this, if a saver has got £60,000 in the bank and they're making 0. of F all, you know what I'm talking about, interest rates, and they've got inflation. They've got inflation to worry about. And now that you've seen this presentation, you can go back and tell them just how bad inflation is going to be. They may well be very happy to work with you. So I do think that there's going to be an opportunity to work with investors to raise finance for property deals. And when you're out there looking and find these amazing property deals, you might just find that you can sweeten the pill for some investors who may be thinking that offers a much more solid asset-based protection for my cash, which the bank ain't doing. If you're currently buying, again, take a risk-based approach. So I spoke to one of my mentees today who's worried because he's got 2 purchases going through. One of the HMOs he's not that happy about. He's not certain about it, and he's borrowed money from an investor to buy it. The other HMO he's really happy about and he wants to go forward, but he was just nervous about it. So we talked it all through. We talked through the figures. We talked through the plan B and the backup plan. And he decided he did want to pursue that one because he knows that he can fill it. He knows there's massive demand in his area, and he knows it'll produce a lovely HMO at the end of it. So, each deal, each situation is slightly different. And all that you can do really is look at the financials, look at the worst case scenario, take a risk-based approach, and then decide what's right for you. Keep an eye on auctions, because I think we'll see some people needing to sell quickly. And if you can't, there's nothing coming up, just wait. Okay? It's okay, just wait. Stuff will happen. Believe you me, stuff will start happening. And if you are currently going through a buying process, it might be worth going back to the vendor and asking them for a bit of a reduction. I don't like to do that. Ethically, I wouldn't really do that normally, but I think in these changing times, it might be something worth doing. Of course, it's likely that the purchase will be seriously delayed anyway. It's going to be on pause because of, solicitors are off, and surveyors are generally not doing surveys. So, just absolutely awful time. So I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be even possible for you to buy that house quite yet, but it's just something to think about. Okay, next one, just very quickly, I want to talk about managing your HMO. So, number 1, follow government guidance about cleaning and social distancing. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about hand washing and all of that. You know all of that. I'll put some links up at the end of the webinar as well. You'll get a recording of the webinar, and I'll send you some links for government guidance. So we'll go straight onto the government website and share with you what the government are saying. If you're part of the Facebook group, you'll see some of my posts about what we've been trying to help tenants with. So we were informing them about rental, that their rent is still due, that they can't just kind of decide not to pay, and that they, if they want to pay less, if they want to, you know, take a slight reduction in rent, they have to fill out a form, and all of those materials, the posters, the form, everything is on the Facebook page. Or you can download my coronavirus first aid for landlords kit, which again, if you go to the go to the Facebook page, the form is there and you can just fill that in, and then you can get straight to a Dropbox page, and everything's there, all completely free, nothing to pay. You don't have to pay anything for it. It's just to help you get through the next few weeks and months. So keep up to date with government guidance. Inspections, this has still not been made clear. And in fact, one of my members of staff has written to the police about it, because she was concerned that if she did go and do an inspection, or she did a viewing, albeit at a distance, you know, with her sort of megaphone, the room is room 3. It is the ground floor on the left. Please go into the ground floor on the left. So if she finds she has to do that, then she doesn't want to go to work and for the police to arrest her on the way for an unnecessary journey. So we haven't had clarity on this. This down below on the slide you'll see is a screenshot from the 24th of March, which says that a civil servant from the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government said that agents are not essential businesses and there should not be any in-person viewings, routine inspections or house moves. Okay, we wrote to our local council to confirm that. One person said you still do need to be doing fire alarm inspections and routine emergency lighting and fire safety inspections. And the other person from the very same council said you do not need to be doing it. So there isn't clarity yet. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know. This is a screenshot from the RLA. Actually, I should have screenshot it a little bit further down. This is on the Facebook page as well, but again, this highlights the fact that it's saying actually inspections are okay to do. And you can go and do inspections because emergency fire inspections are vital for the safety of your tenants. We don't want another Grenfell Tower to occur while we've also got coronavirus happening, type of thing. So still no clarity, so just keep looking out for that one. So these are some links. Again, I'll send these all off later, so that when you get the recording, you can click through. These are official government guidelines. One of them is the coronavirus bill. If you like being bored to tears, you can sit and read your way through it. But there are some interesting things about getting paid and payment holidays and so on for tenants in there. Okay, what about getting help for you? So this is absolutely up to date. This has literally just been released today. What has the government said about getting help if you're self-employed? So self-employed people will be able to apply for a grant worth 80% of their average monthly profits over the last 3 years. So this is what they said, monthly profits. Very interesting. Up to £2,500 a month. At least half of your income needs to have come from self-employment as registered on the 2018-19 tax return. And if you haven't filed it, they're giving you a chance to file it now. If you earn under £50,000 a year, so that's quite a significant amount of people who are self-employed do, then you'll be fine. If you earn more than that, then you are ineligible for the scheme. And if, unlike the employee scheme, which the government announced a few days ago or a week ago, the self-employed can continue to work. So the employee scheme, you have to furlough staff to get the 80%. They literally have to be off work. But the self-employed can continue to work and receive support. People won't get the money till June though. So between now and June, you've got to think of a plan. What are you going to do if your income has all dried up? How are you going to manage? And I think for property investors, it all depends on how you structured your business. You might have structured it as a limited company and you're a director of that limited company. You might have some property in your own name, in which case you'd be classed as a sole trader. So you'd be having an income from your sole trade. If you're a director of a limited company, you may well take the minimum amount as income so that you keep your stamp, your national insurance up to date, but the rest of it is paid in dividends. You may not even be taking dividends right now because you might have made a loan into the company and be paying yourself back in terms of a director's loan. So really, this is probably a conversation to have with your accountant as to decide how you do this and how you structure it so that you can most benefit from this opportunity of help if you need it. Because remember, the grants will be taxable and will need to be declared on your tax return by January 2022. I think that's fair enough, though. Personally, this is extra income the government is giving you. So I think, you know, that I don't have a problem with that being taxable. I think that's just like if I had earned money ordinarily. If you pay yourself a dividend, you're not covered. Well, again, that doesn't quite make sense in my mind because people have different sources. You might pay yourself a £25,000 salary and you might have a £15,000 dividend. You're still earning less than £50,000 a year. Does that count? Or if you pay yourself 1p of a dividend, does that totally eradicate you from being able to access the scheme? And Gareth, you're absolutely right. HMRC do not class landlords as self-employed. In some cases, in other cases, they do. It all depends how you structured your business. It all depends what is on your the SIC codes on your limited company. These are all some of these are some of the discussions that probably are going on right now that have not yet been clarified. So I think each case is individual, and really it's just about you knowing what's being said so you can make a decision. And this should be number 6. With COVID, I've obviously lost my ability to count. But this is really the most important slide of all of this, because if you look after yourself and your family, you will get through this. It may be tough. It may be really difficult. Take action and use the tools that you have to run your business properly. And you may have to cut back. You may have to make some drastic decisions. But make sensible decisions, not based on fear or worry, but based on fact and information. Be responsible, not selfish. Be patient and have faith. And if all fails, remember, this too will pass. I don't know how any of us are going to come out of this situation. I don't want to promise you it's all going to be flowers and sweet smelling roses at the end. I think we're going to be in for a rocky time. But my belief is that if we stick with it, if we persevere, if we keep that belief that what we have as landlords and what we offer as investors to the economy is valuable, then we will get through this. And certainly what I've learned in my 25 years of investing is that what I know and what I can do is incredibly valuable and gives a lot of help and support to other people. And I'll carry on doing that, whatever happens. Even if I lost everything, I'd still carry on doing that. And I think if we have that as our ethics, then actually we'll pick up and we'll all survive through this. So, oh, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Gareth. So I want to open up now and take some questions because I think that would be valuable. I'm sure many of you have got questions. If we don't cover your question tonight, or if overnight you start to think, oh, I've got another question for Wendy, please feel free to put it on the Facebook group or email me separately. That's absolutely fine. I'm here to help. I know it must be really tough for people, and being a landlord can be a very lonely position to be in. So, you know, really, I'm just here to help you and support you get through this. Okay. I'm going to send all the recording of the webinar will be sent out at the end. So just to let you know about that. So Ben, you've got a question. You have a few mortgages with a 75 to 80% loan to value based on market value. Okay, that's a really good question. Do I think the bank will call in the loan? So I would look at your terms and conditions of your mortgage offer and find out what the rules are in the mortgage offer, because that will tell you at what point they'll start to get jittery about it and want to call in the loan. I'd also speak to your mortgage broker about that, or if you organise the mortgage direct, speak directly to the lender and find out what their policy is. I suspect not, because I think if your loan gets called in, my loans get called in, everybody else's loans who are on this webinar get called in, and the property market will completely crash and there'll be no housing available. So that could spell absolute disaster. I think it's very, very unlikely. I think this coronavirus is in some ways the trigger that is going to burst the economic bubble that we've been in the last 10 years that didn't really happen in 2008. We had an economic crash in 2008, but actually it's just been, the balloon has still been being inflated over the last 10 years. So people will say it's the coronavirus, but actually if you look at the history of the banking sector, and there's a lot of other people that I follow, and they're all saying that actually this is, the coronavirus is just the trigger. It's the catalyst that's going to create the pressure downwards, the depression, if we have a depression, which is probably very likely. So I think if it happens to you, hey, give me a ring. We'll go out for coffee, because I'll be free as well. I won't have any money. I won't have any, I won't have any tenants. Oh, happy days. That sounds like a very good solution. Anyway, that's my thought, Ben. Okay, should you be doing a deep clean in an HMO? And is it okay for a cleaner to go into the HMO? So these are very good questions, and I don't think we've yet got a really clear information from the local council about this. I've asked the local council for guidance. What we've said, our cleaners are self-employed and they are carrying on going into the property, and they have socially distanced, they've got PPE, they're washing very, very carefully before and afterwards. And they are telling tenants when they're going to be going in. So we have a system whereby one of our managers will text all the tenants to say the cleaners are coming at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Please make sure you're in your rooms, so that nobody sees each other either. So we are carrying on with that. But again, it's possible the police might say to the cleaners, sorry, this isn't essential, go back, go home. And we wait to see if that happens. But at the moment, we're carrying on with the cleaners. Gareth, can you hear me now? Sorry. Hope you can hear me now. Right. Any other questions? Are you concerned about your cash flow? What are you doing to try and stop any hemorrhages? Do you employ staff? Have you got concerns about staff? Or is there anything else that you're worried about, or that I could help you with in terms of my experience? James, that's for another webinar. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sad times. It kind of makes a mockery of when Gordon Brown said, I think in 1998 or something, he said, we're going to put an end to boom and bust. When he said that, even I wasn't particularly well financially educated, but even I knew, I don't think you can, George. I don't think you can do this on your own. Sorry, not I'm talking about George Osborne. I mean Gordon Brown. I thought Gordon. I don't think you can do that. So offers to buy 3 of our HMOs at good prices. Well, it depends what you're going to do with the money. I wouldn't stick it in the bank personally, Ben, but if you feel, again, this is about the risk and reward, isn't it? If you feel that it's worth selling to crystallize the money, or crystallize the loss actually, and you think you could use the cash in a better way when there's some really good deals come through, yeah, why not? I've got nothing against selling HMOs. We've actually got one of our HMOs on the market at the moment, a 7-bed HMO, because the investor that I bought it with wants to get his money out because he wants to do another deal somewhere else. So it's going to be a bit of a loss of income for me, but it happens, doesn't it? People buy property and sell property. I'm fairly level-headed about it. If you think it's a good deal and you're happy with it, then it might be a good time to sell. Yeah, it certainly will give you fewer sleepless nights, I would have thought. You're getting an offer here, Ben. Gareth's asking for the money. I'll just let you two do this separately. Would I drop the room rate temporarily? Possibly. I think it depends, Amber, on your own cash flow situation. If you need to drop the room rates, you've got to do the maths on how much does it cost you to run that room. If you like, what's the divided cost of the mortgage and all the services, the utilities, etc. Usually it's about 40% of the room rate. So let's say it costs you £40 a week to actually kind of run that room. You'd make about £60 a week if you were renting it for £100 a week. So can you go low? Can you go to £40 or £50 a week just so you get some income and cover the cash flow? That might be worth doing. On our form that we put together to try and ask tenants to let us know if they need a rent reduction, we've aligned the figures with our local housing allowance rates. So if somebody has to go on to housing benefit, they can claim housing benefit, and we'll actually help them to do that as well. Then we let them go to about £55 a week. That's about the lowest that we'd kind of allow them to do. Okay, right, guys. Well, listen, I would like to say thank you all very much for being here. Maybe for some of you, this wasn't quite what you're expecting. I do hopefully offer some practical, tangible advice for you, but I hope you can see why I feel it's really important that we are also financially educated. I feel that it's kind of a passion of mine to help educate the property sector, because a lot of people don't understand some of these economic indices. And when we don't understand what's going on around us, we can make the wrong decisions. And I just want to help you to make the right decisions. So really good. Thank you very much for being here. And yeah, really, really good to see you all. And please feel free to keep posting questions and messaging me if you've got any other questions. Take care, one and all. See you soon.